Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive.
Yeah.
We've designed this specifically for you, the ultimate learner, someone who really loves connecting dots across entirely different fields of knowledge to find those hidden aha moments.
Absolutely.
And to kick things off today, I actually want you to picture something for a second. Try to put yourself in a very specific headspace. Imagine you are a sculptor.
Okay. A sculptor.
Yeah, but not just a weekend hobbyist, like an absolute master of the craft.
Oh.
And you spend months, maybe even years, completely alone in a studio with just a single massive block of marble.
Right. Real dedication.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are obsessively carving this life-size statue, and you are pouring every single ounce of your focus into it. I mean, you talk to this stone. You essentially fall in love with the image that you're creating in your mind.
Wow. So a total fixation.
A total fixation. And then, after years of this intense, unbroken concentration, you strike the chisel for the very last time. The marble dust settles. And instead of just, sitting there on a pedestal, the creation literally blinks, steps out of the stone, and walks toward you.
I mean, that is just the ultimate creative fantasy, isn't it?
It really is.
That mythical moment where the art becomes completely indistinguishable from life, where the creator's obsession actually breaches the boundary of reality.
It's an incredibly captivating, almost startling mental image. And that exact scenario isn't just a metaphor for us today. It is actually the launching pad for the source material we are exploring in this deep dive.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating source.
It really is. We have this text from June 2006 by an author named Suefeng. The piece is titled Reality Emerges from the Mind, Chapter of Celestial Cultivation, Article 12. And our mission today is to unpack the central, honestly rather audacious argument of this text.
Audacious is definitely the right word for it.
Right. The author is positing that consciousness, specifically a pure soul and intensely focused thought, it doesn't just influence your internal mood, it literally, physically shapes the fabric of reality itself.
Yes.
And according to the author, mastering this process can ultimately lead to a state of celestial immortality.
It's a striking title, and it is a deeply complex text because, well, while that premise might sound purely magical on the surface, what the author is actually presenting is a highly structured theory.
Like a science almost.
Exactly. We're essentially looking at a proposed physics of the non-material world. The text is trying to map out the mechanics of consciousness, energy, and how the invisible forces of our minds interact with the visible world we walk around in every single day.
Okay, let's unpack this because I was absolutely marveling at this source material. It is such a wild ride for the reader. I mean, for a learner like you listening right now, this is a masterclass in synthesizing totally disparate ideas.
It really jumps around, yeah.
One moment, you are reading what sounds like an ancient mystical parable, and the next you're getting hit with unexpected references to 1990s New Age literature.
Which is quite the leap.
It is. But before the text gets into the actual how of this non-material physics, it sets the stage with case studies. It gives us evidence of this creation process in action, which brings us back to our sculptor.
Right, so the author uses that sculptor to illustrate a very specific kind of mental state. The text describes a sculptor who crafts a life-sized, unparalleled beauty out of stone. But the narrative barely mentions his technique with the chisel.
Yeah, it's not about the carving at all.
Not at all. The entire focus is on the internal process of his obsession. The text states he conversed with her in his mind, indulging in delightful moments purely through his thoughts. He remained wholeheartedly focused, pouring his essence, energy, spirit, heart, and mind into the creation.
Total immersion.
Total immersion. It's not about physical labor. It's a complete and total spiritual investment.
And that leads to that final chisel strike I mentioned in the hook. The text makes a really interesting distinction here that we need to highlight, because it says that, strictly speaking, the physical marble statue remained a statue.
Right. The stone didn't turn to flesh.
Exactly. The stone didn't suddenly become a biological human, but its non-material essence emerged from it. The celestial maiden came to life in that non-material layer of reality, forming an eternal bond with the sculptor. And through this, they achieved immortality.
Yes.
And then the author just casually drops the massive claim that the very essence of faith taught by Jesus Christ is embedded right here in this tale of intense, unwavering mental focus.
What's really fascinating here is how the author uses these stories to build a mounting argument about the power of the mind over matter, because the sculptor's story is immediately contrasted with another
The
tale.
painter, right?
Yeah, the miraculous painter. So this painter is performing in front of a large audience, and he paints a beautiful celestial crane on a wall. And the moment his brush lifts, the crane literally leaves the wall fully alive and soars into the heavens.
Oh, wow.
The crowd is amazed, obviously. He paints another, it flies away, on and on.
Now, I have to push back a little on how we are interpreting this, or at least ask the question I think any critical learner listening would be wondering right now. Because when I read this, my mind immediately goes to classic mythology.
Sure, like the classics.
Pygmalion falling in love with his statue, or Geppetto and Pinocchio. Love bringing art to life is a really age-old trope. So are we supposed to read this text literally? Or is the author using these artists as a metaphor for absolute, unbroken mental focus?
Like a manifestation thing?
Sort of like a self-help concept, yeah. If you focus hard enough on your goals, they manifest in your life.
That is definitely the natural modern reading. We are highly conditioned to view these kinds of stories as allegories for hard work or positive thinking. But the text treats this quite literally, specifically regarding that non-material world. The author is positing that focused consciousness creates real, tangible architecture in a layer of reality we just don't normally perceive with our physical eyes.
So it's actually happening.
According to the text, yes. But here is the real twist that clarifies the author's stance. The author actually dismisses the painter's amazing flying crane trick.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. He calls bringing a painting to life a trivial skill. I think most of us would be pretty impressed if someone painted a bird and it flew off the canvas.
We absolutely would be. But the author calls it a trivial skill and a cumbersome method.
Why cumbersome?
Because the painter still relied on physical crutches. He still needed the wall, the bristles of the brush, the physical paint to manifest that reality. For the author, the supreme art isn't painting or sculpting physical matter.
Okay, then what is it?
The ultimate art form is the cultivation of the mind itself, creating reality without any physical medium at all. The text cites a figure called the Super Celestial You from Snow Peak Island as an example of a being who has demonstrated this miraculous creation purely through the mind, bypassing the physical entirely.
So we are moving from the concept of bringing art to life to the concept of bringing oneself to a higher state of existence. That makes me wonder, if focused consciousness can create a non-material maiden or a crane, how does a human being apply that to themselves to ascend?
Right, how do you do it to yourself?
Exactly. How do you become your own ultimate piece of living art?
Well, to answer that, the author re-examines a very famous piece of Chinese folklore, the tragic romance of Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, often known in the West as the butterfly lovers.
Right, and in the traditional myths that most people know, they die tragically because they can't be together, and their spirits are transformed into these beautiful, radiant butterflies that flutter away together.
Yes, that's the classic version.
It's a bittersweet ending. But our author steps in and aggressively edits the myth, saying, no, the original writer of that story got it completely wrong.
Yeah, the text fundamentally corrects the traditional narrative. According to Zhefen, becoming an insect, even a beautiful butterfly, would be a bizarre downgrade for two deeply devoted souls.
Which, fair point.
Right. The reality, the text claims, is that when lightning struck and thunder roared, a bolt cracked open Zhu Yingtai's tomb. Liang Shanbo leaped into the open grave, and in that moment they fulfilled a final rite. They didn't become bugs. They ascended together into the celestial realm as higher beings.
It is a much more literal, physical, and triumphant ascension in this version. But the way the author jumps from that ancient Chinese legend to their next point gave me actual mental whiplash.
It is quite a pivot.
It's a huge pivot. The text takes this sudden, surprising turn and drops quotes from a very famous 1993 modern fiction book, The Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah.
Specifically, it pulls from the ninth inside of that book.
Yes, it does.
For a learner trying to follow the thread, combining ancient Chinese folklore with a 90s New Age bestseller is quite a leap.
It is a striking juxtaposition, but it serves a very deliberate purpose. The author is pulling excerpts where characters in the Celestine Prophecy are vibrating at such a high frequency that they actually vanish from the sight of normal people.
I have the exact quote from the source right here. It says, "They can't see us," Sanchez said. "We are vibrating too highly."
Yeah, it is.
And then it describes a character named Will walking toward them. and his image becomes hazy, distorted, until he disappears altogether simply because the observer's eyes can't register that high of a frequency.
And from that scene, the text isolates a specific formula articulated by a character named Julia. The formula for this kind of ascension is quite simple in theory. Abolishing fear plus seeing beauty equals evolution.
So, no fear, see beauty, you evolve.
Exactly. And that internal evolution leads directly to a higher physical vibration. Ultimately, this increased perception and vibration opens us up to a heaven that is already right in front of us. We just can't see it yet because our frequency is too low.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. How does the author connect a tragic folklore romance from ancient China with this sci-fi sounding 90s concept of vibrating out of the visible light spectrum? Because those feel like they're operating on completely different rule sets.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture the author is painting, he is arguing that both stories, the folklore and the modern novel, are attempting to describe the exact same underlying mechanism of the universe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they are both depicting the inevitable result of a purified soul. Whether you call it fulfilling a final rite in a lightning storm or abolishing fear to raise your vibration, the mechanics are identical.
So it's not random magic in either case. It's a predictable outcome.
The text explicitly claims that this kind of immortality or ascension isn't some nonsensical fairy tale reserved for the lucky few. For those who single-mindedly seek the mysteries of life and do the hard work of elevating their consciousness, becoming a celestial being is a seamless and inevitable process.
Inevitable.
The author actually compares it to being as natural as the turning of the seasons. You know, winter turns to spring because of the tilt of the earth. A human ascends because they have raised their thinking frequency and purified their mind. It is pure cause and effect.
Well, if it's as natural as the turning of the seasons, then we need to really dig into the physics of this cause and effect. If the goal for the listener is this high-frequency ascension, how does the author explain the actual mechanics of this non-material world?
Because it sounds theoretical.
Right now, it still sounds a bit like poetic theory.
The author grounds it in a foundational principle. Illness arises from the mind, and reality is shaped by the heart.
Reality is shaped by the heart. I mean, that still sounds quite poetic to me. But the author backs it up with a literal equation for existence, right? Let's break that down.
The text states that the existence of all physical forms is the result of the interaction of three distinct elements: structure, consciousness, and energy. And of those three, consciousness is the boss.
So the boss.
It plays the crucial directing role, with the soul being the core engine of that consciousness.
Let me make sure I understand this equation. Structure plus consciousness plus energy equals physical form.
That's the formula.
If I were to use my own analogy here, think of structure as the architectural blueprint for a house. Energy represents the raw building materials, the bricks, the wood, the physical labor. But the bricks and the blueprint do nothing on their own. Consciousness is the architect and the foreman combined. It is the invisible force that directs the energy to fill in the structure.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Consciousness dictates how the energy is applied to the structure. And to explain how this invisible architect interacts with the visible bricks, the text introduces the concept of Taiji thinking.
The text mentions Taiji thinking, but it moves pretty fast. What exactly is that in this context?
So Taiji, in Chinese philosophy, often relates to the supreme ultimate, the interplay of yin and yang. In this text, Taiji thinking is the awareness that reality always has two halves. Wherever there is matter, the visible, tangible stuff, there is also the non-material.
The unseen half.
Exactly. Just as there is life visible to the naked eye, there is a massive ecosystem of life that remains unseen. The author uses a very relatable analogy to help us grasp this unseen half: dreams.
Oh, I love the dream analogy in the text.
Yeah.
Because it's undeniably true. You cannot put a dream on a scale. You can't point to a dream in the physical world and say, there it is.
Right. It has no physical mass.
But when you are in the dream state, everything in it, the people, the environments, the emotions, it feels completely real and tangible. The author argues that the non-material world is exactly the same. You have to enter its specific state to witness its wonders. You have to tune your internal frequency to match it.
And that brings us to the most practical question for you listening. How do you tune that frequency? How do you generate the sheer amount of energy required to interact with that non-material layer and actually shape reality?
Right. How do we actually do this?
This is where the text brings everything full circle back to the concept of focus, just like our master sculptor at the very beginning.
Yes, the solar stove analogy. This was by far my favorite part of the source material, because it makes this highly abstract concept incredibly grounded.
It's a great visual.
The author says a pure soul wields the power to channel energy and compares it to a solar stove. If you've never seen one of these, imagine a large, curved, parabolic dish, and the inside is covered in hundreds of tiny separate mirrors.
And if you take just one of those tiny mirrors on its own, it seems completely insignificant. It reflects a little bit of glare into your eye, but it doesn't have any real power or heat.
It's weak. It's like having a million scattered, distracted thoughts throughout your day. Think about your own mind right now.
What's for lunch?
Did I reply to that email? Did I leave the stove on? What's happening on the news?
Just constant noise.
Constant. Our mental energy is usually bouncing in 1,000 different directions. Those scattered thoughts don't have the power to change anything. But if you align all those perfectly, like the hundreds of mirrors on that solar stove, angled to reflect the sunlight onto one single solitary point in the center, the concentrated energy becomes terrifyingly intense.
It's focused power.
It can set a block of wood ablaze in seconds, or bring a kettle of water to a rolling boil.
The author is arguing that human consciousness operates on that exact same mechanical principle. When your thoughts are scattered by modern distractions, fear, or anxiety, your impact on reality is weak. Your mirrors are pointing in every direction.
Just reflecting random glare.
Right. But when your soul is pure, and your visualized thinking is entirely focused on a single beautiful image, just like the sculptor who obsessed over his maiden, your consciousness generates enough concentrated energy to actually interact with the non-material world. You boil the water. You change physical reality.
So a pure soul acts as the ultimate focusing lens for the universe's energy.
The text lays out this final, inevitable sequence very clearly. The environment you reside in is directly dictated by your soul. The purer and more beautiful your soul, meaning the more you abolish fear and focus on beauty, as Julia said in the Celestine Prophecy, the higher the vibrational frequency of your thought.
The higher the frequency.
And the higher that frequency, the more wondrous and elevated the space you inhabit becomes. Visualized thinking is the core activity of the soul, and that hyper-focused activity is the literal secret to immortality.
And after laying out all this profound, mind-bending physics of the non-material world, after connecting ancient myths to modern fiction and breaking down the mechanics of the solar stove, the author ends the text with one of the most confident dropping-the-mic statements I've read in a long time.
Oh, the final sentence is incredibly direct. The author writes, "I have already pierced the veil. The rest is up to you."
The rest is up to you. I mean, that is quite a challenge to throw at the reader.
It forces a moment of self-reflection. The author is essentially saying, I have handed you the operating manual for the universe. I've shown you how the solar stove of your mind works and how to tune your frequency.
Right.
Now, are you going to leave your mirrors scattered to the wind? Or are you going to do the hard work of focusing them?
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, as you go about the rest of your day? Let's zoom out and look at the sheer scope of the journey we've just taken through this text. We started in a quiet studio with a master sculptor, obsessively pouring his entire spirit into marble, until the non-material essence of his creation literally came alive.
From there, we explored the idea that this intense focus isn't just a parlor trick for artists, it's the engine of human evolution. We saw how the author connected the tragic, lightning-struck ascension in ancient Chinese folklore to the high-vibrating, fear-abolishing characters in a 1990s sci-fi novel.
We learned that this ascension, this shaping of reality, isn't random magic. It's a structured, predictable process governed by Taiji thinking, and that crucial equation where consciousness acts as the architect, directing energy to build structure.
Yes.
It all culminates in the realization that focused mental energy and a pure heart, exactly like that solar stove, concentrating our scattered, chaotic thoughts into a laser beam that actually shapes the reality around us.
It is a philosophy that completely strips away victimhood. It frames every single thought you have, every fear you entertain, and every beautiful thing you visualize as an active component in constructing the environment you live in.
It challenges how we usually think about daydreaming or anxiety. And I want to leave you with a brand new thought to mull over, something that builds on this idea of the mind acting as a reality-generating solar stove. If this text is right, if reality truly emerges from the mind, and our focused consciousness brings our inner statues to life, we have to ask ourselves a tough question.
What kind of statues are we building without realizing it?
That is the ultimate question. If your mental energy brings things to life, What unconscious statues, what deep-seated fears or negative, cynical narratives are you accidentally pouring your mental energy into every single day?
Yeah, what are you projecting?
What anxieties you're bringing to life in your everyday reality simply because you didn't realize you were holding the chisel?
It's a powerful reminder to pay very close attention to where we point our mirrors.
It changes everything about how you view a wandering mind. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive. Keep your soul pure, keep your mirrors focused on what you actually want to build, and we'll catch you on the next one.